Hello and welcome to the Leadership Edge. I'm your host, Ted Gorski. The Leadership Edge is a show which focuses on the topics that affect the leaders on a day-to-day basis. I am the host, Ted Gorski. I am an executive coach and leadership coach. And I focus on developing leadership in organizations at various levels. This show really focuses on what you can do on a daily basis to improve your leadership skills, both at the office, at home, or even on the playing field. So the whole goal of this show is to really help you understand those topics and those issues that affect leadership on a daily basis. Now today's show is going to really focus on communication. I met several people on the street who kind of said, hey, we saw your first show and we saw that you talked a little bit about communication. We really like to learn more. So I decided for today's show to really focus on those little tidbits on how leaders can be better communicators and what you can do to be a better communicator and a better leader by using the essence of communication. Last week I actually spoke on this, doing a little talk at a seminar in which I spoke on the whole fact that you cannot not communicate. And what I did was I put the group through a little lesson. And the first thing I did was I had people pair up, and the first situation I gave them was to think of someone they don't like. Maybe it was a vendor. Maybe it's an entertainer they don't like. Hopefully it wasn't the person they were working with. But I wanted them for 20 seconds just think of that person. Now they didn't say a word. Their partner was focusing on them to really look and observe on what they saw. As they were doing this, I was walking around the room and noticed the interactions from their body language. It was amazing. People were clenched up, wincing. And matter of fact, their bodies just kind of shriveled right up into a very tense and stressful position. Then, on the second part of the exercise, I had them think of someone who they love. It was amazing, the transformations. For 20 seconds, you can see smiles on the faces. You can see literally their eyes light up. You can literally see their body language change into a more warm and friendly way. My whole point here is that we as leaders cannot not communicate. When you're dealing with issues on a day-to-day basis, you don't have to say one word. Your body language will come out true and true. And that's an important aspect to understand as leaders, that body language has a lot to do on what you're saying. This brings me up to kind of one of my favorite quotes from the late Stephen Covey, who was the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the quote that he kind of spoke on was, we don't see the world not as it is, but as we are. Now, I use this quote quite a bit with the leaders that I work with and coach. What I try to get them to understand is that people see the world through filters. And as leaders, we have filters, but also the people we lead have filters. It's important to understand that whole concept as you're working with others. Because you can have people stand on the street and, let's say, notice a car accident or witness a car accident. Now, what probably happens is the people will see it from two different perspectives. That's usually what happens, because they see the world through filters. So it's important to understand how these filters affect communication. Now, when we talk about ineffective communication, how do you know you have it? It's amazing when I talk to leaders about this. Typical answers I get, people don't look at me. They look at their laptop. They look at their phones. A lot of people just say that the eye contact doesn't exist. Or, as I usually call them, the yuppers, who just go, yup, 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 yup. Well, what I try to explain to leaders is when they see that kind of situation, what they have are two different styles at work. What happens is when the two styles are happening and they're opposites, what's happening is the person wants to get out of that situation. It's very uncomfortable for them. This is the early sign of ineffective communication. And for you, by watching this show, you now realize that if that happens to you, whether you're giving someone instructions and they seem to be pushing you away, or they're not understanding what you're saying, what's happening is you've got two different people who have two different styles, hence two different types of blinders on. which is not going to make communication connect. So the whole concept of today's show is really help you understand how to do that and to be able to witness that. So let's talk about the communication process real quickly here and what kind of happens. Do you like my little blah blah on the speaker? I love that. I was actually on the internet for 45 minutes checking that out. I really love it in this whole thing. This is a typical communication process that happens. If you and I are speaking, as I'm approaching you and you're the listener, what I am doing is I encode a message, which then you decode on your side. So let's just break this apart very quickly so you understand this whole concept. When I encode a message to you, what I am doing is putting it into my style. It's my preferred style on how I like to communicate. You, on the other hand, take my message. Think of it as I'm wrapping my gift and my message up in a nice gift, and I'm sliding it across the table to you. Now, you decode it, which means you unwrap the gift and you open it up. If you and I happen to see the world the same way, if we have the same type of blinders on, usually what happens in this flow of communication is things work very well. The communication gets through, you understand what I am asking for, and we both understand what's expected of each of us. However, what happens if you and I are different? Well, obviously the message doesn't get through, and most likely when you open up my little gift, you're looking at it in a weird and different way. So the whole concept here is this is kind of what happens in a typical communication process. But it even gets even more involved. Because what happens here is part of this is there's observable language that occurs, or observable behavior. And there are three aspects of behaviors that occur when I encode a message. First thing I do is my body language. It's my posture. It's how I'm standing, how I'm sitting. My use of my hands. Do I use hands? Do I use them at all? Am I more controlled? And of course, facial expressions. Am I smiling? Am I frowning? Am I grimacing? Those are all part of the body language in terms of how I bring across my message. The other part is the tone of my voice. Am I going loud? Am I soft? Is my pace slow or fast? This all also helps me communicate my message. And lastly, it's the words I use. It's how do I come across to you in the specific words. Now, if I have certain blinders on, I then will see the world a whole lot different. And most likely, if you and I are different in our styles, you can see that most likely our body language, our tone, and the words we use are different. However, if you and I are similar, we are most likely have similar body language, tone, and words. And this is kind of how it all works. So taking this whole graphic even further, you can see now on the right-hand side of it, I've put down body language, tone, and words in terms of how I wrap it up, or I encode my message and slide it across the table to you. You, on the other hand, decode in the same three ways. So you read my body language, you read my tone or listen to my tone, and then you hear the words I am using. So we are now going to take this up one more notch. You'll notice in the top right, I have certain percentages next to each of those characteristics. There have been research studies done by the University of California of Los Angeles that actually talked about how communication is provided. And in these three ways, 55 of your message is through your body language. So going back to what we talked about, your body language is your facial expressions. It's how you're standing, it's how you're sitting. It's all those things tied in. 55% of that is through that. 38% is through the tone of voice. Are you strong? Are you soft? Are you aggressive? This all comes across. And lastly, words. Now, what's very interesting is if you tally up body language and tone, that's 93% of your message is through those two mediums. So you can see that words are really inconsequential to the message. So what does this have an impact on leaders? Well, as we always say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Have you ever had someone say to you, "Don't ever say that to me that way," or "Don't look at me like that"? Well, those two phrases tell us that that's a different type of style that's into play. And what's happening with you is that you have a different one that's kind of in play between you both. So as a result, there can be a miscommunication. So as leaders, it's really important to understand this when we're communicating, because how people accept your message is going to be how you present it. And the whole concept here is we want to present it in the way that they're most going to consume it. So that's a vital piece here. So this brings us to kind of the 4 different types of styles. And in one of our shows, we kind of race through this. And what we're going to do is spend a little time on each of these particular styles, because each of these styles have certain blinders on and how they see the world. Now, looking at this particular slide, what we're seeing here is if you look at the line going from north to south, fast versus slow. When we talk about fast versus slow, fast means is how I walk, how I talk, and how I make decisions. Slow means that I take it a little bit slower. I have to think things through a little bit. Maybe not have an answer right away, but I have to process it. Looking from west to east, task versus people, if you're more task focused, it means if you come and see me in my office, I'll say, yeah, what do you want? If I'm more people focused, I may start off with a personal comment, hi, how's your day, how you doing? So these all kind of tie in. So if you look in the top left, in terms of the assertive style, that is someone who is fast-paced and task-focused. The socializer would be someone who's fast-paced and people. The steadiness, people and slow. And finally, the analyzer is slow and task. So what we're going to do here is break these down a little bit so you can get an understanding of how these particular styles operate. What kind of blinders they have on that could impact the way they see the world. Now, the key concept here is when I work with leaders on this in organizations, we spend time understanding this. There is no right or wrong style. From all the people that I've coached, especially the leaders, they say, fantastic, I get this, Ted, great idea, but tell me what's the best style and I will kind of work that and be that. The whole concept here, there isn't one. What we're looking at is really having you understand as a leader how these styles see the world, because each of these do bring certain strengths to a team and give us strengths in terms of perspective. So I don't want you to think there is one best style. The whole best thing here is to understand that each of these styles brings certain strengths to the table. So we're first going to talk about our assertive people. Now, these people are the very fast-paced and very task-oriented. Now, when I talk about fast-paced, I am talking about they go at 100 miles an hour. How they walk and how they talk and how they make decisions. It's quick. Okay, think of a tennis match. Boom, 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 boom. Hitting it back and forth. There's not a lot of hesitation here. Is that their whole idea is process-oriented. So here's kind of the overall goals of the assertive. Direct communicator. These are the types that will tell you right away how they feel about you. You know, it's kind of funny in my business when I go in and talk to CEOs who tend to fall in this particular category. When I have initial meetings with them, they'll tell me exactly what they think about me. And they will not sugarcoat anything. If they think you're full of crap, they'll tell you that. These people will tell you pretty much, and you know where you stand with them. These people are very competitive and can be very aggressive. Aggressive in sense of turning their goals. Their goal is to really focus on their goals, and they want to achieve their goals, and they will cut corners to do whatever they need legally, let me remind you, legally, to meet their goals. Their tone of voice will be very confident and strong. There is no meekness to these people. When they see you, their handshake is very firm, and they'll look you straight in the eye. But here's the key thing. They're motivated by results. So when you're working with these people, it's really about focusing on the result you're going to provide to them. That's all they care about, nothing more and nothing less. And that's kind of what I do when I'm working with this particular style. Remember, this style is laser focused. One of their mottos is be brief, be bright, and be gone. Because time is money is time. So now let's transfer and look at the socializer. We are now fast-paced, but we're people-oriented. These are our people. These are our people who can build instant rapport. These are our enthusiastic, motivational people. You see these all the time. When they come in, they want to make sure everyone is happy. Very positive tones. You can hear them laughing in the hallways. They're all about motivation. They're all keeping things positive. Word can do it. These people are great on your team to really focus on keeping you to achieve your goal. Their tone of voice is going to be loud and passionate. Passionate in the sense of energy. Very energetic people. Now, these people are very visual. So if you're working with these people, they have to see pictures. And this is the big challenge when we're working with assertives, is that they look at these people sometimes and don't realize that these people think in pictures. So we kind of help the leaders understand that. Motivated by fun and recognition. Their belief is, you get around life only once, let's make it fun. So anything that involves fun is part of them. They go at 75 miles an hour. So unlike our assertives who go at 100 miles an hour, our socializers can go very, very fast. Here's the other thing about socializers. They tend to forget conversations. So for example, if you talk to them in the hallway and say you need something by a certain time, they'll say yes, no problem. But when that socializer goes to the next person, they start talking to them. Guess what happens to your conversation? That's right. Goes to this place called Gate of Heaven, poof, and is gone, which really frustrates, especially the assertives. So it's always those kind of things that the socializer kind of happens to them because they're all about the people and they want to make sure that they please everyone and all. Now, let's turn over to now our steadiness kind of people. Okay, now we're starting to be still people-oriented, but now we're getting at a slower pace. These are our patient people. What's difference between these and the socializers is their tone of voice. A steadiness type of person speaks at a discussion level, not any higher. Because if I raise my voice, they're like, don't relax, calm down, I'm right here. Large voices, loud voices, aggressive voices shut these people down. Because these people like to think. They're the calm, they're the warm, friendly. These people build relationships with people. These are the people you'll see in the office that have a lot of relationships with people because their whole concept is to build relationships, because to get things done, you have to do it through people. So you have to be very warm and friendly and cordial to others. A key point for this particular style is they like to marinate on things. They like to think about things. Think about it. When you marinate your favorite steak, chicken, or fish dish, isn't it a process? Of course it is. You don't just throw it in a bag or throw it in your favorite dish and then put it on the grill and think it's marinated. There is a whole entire process to it. It's the same thing with the steadiness. When they think about things, it's a huge process to them. They have to think it through. What I tell my assertives who work with these people, that if they want some answers from them, is to queue the questions up, usually the night before. Because guess what happens with this steadiness person? That's right, they're going to start thinking about it all the way through the night and when they're driving into the office in the morning. And then when the meeting starts, boom, they'll have an answer. Because they like to think things through. Motivated by security. They have to feel secure in their job. In my work, I'm usually dealing with a lot of companies that recently may have gone through some changes or through issues. The steadiness people really feel it because the security of what's happening in the office has ruffled underneath their feet and they feel very uncomfortable. Steadiness goes at 50 miles an hour. So you can see what happens in terms of pace between them and the assertives. Okay? Double the speed, the assertives are double faster. So what ends up happening is, by going too fast, can get the steadiness to feel very uncomfortable. And our last style I want to speak on is the analyzer. We are now task-focused and much slower paced. Three things that this style really worries about and cares about. Quality, quality, and quality. Now, it's no joke, there's no misprint. That's the three things they care about. Because this style is very informational driven. These are like a CPAs, right? They follow rules and they follow procedures. That's important to them. I have to cannot deviate from the process and I cannot deviate from the rules. So these people are very detailed oriented. Their tone of voice is very soft. So when they're having discussions, they're not going to, their tone of voice will not be loud at all. because what they're doing is really focusing on information. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that assertives does with an analyzer is to tell them they're wrong. Or they say to them, I have some constructive criticism for you. Two of those phrases will shut this person down because analyzers see themselves as experts. So the key trick in working with an analyzer is really focusing on the data. You say to them, the data shows me this, tell me why the data shows you something different. Because they're motivated by data and quality. These are the two things that's real important for this particular style. And oh, by the way, they go at 25 miles an hour. So you can see what happens in terms of the pace in regards to the analyzer versus the assertive. The assertive goes 4 times as fast. It makes quicker decisions while the analyzer wants to sit down and really think a lot through. So this is kind of just a general overview of each of these styles and how they interact with each other. So the whole concept here to really look at as we're kind of talking about these styles is several things. Number one, differences don't cause conflict. Differences just mean different. As leaders, it's important to understand that each of these communication styles brings a different aspect to the table. By understanding how people have those blinders on and how they deal with information and how they process things in their day-to-day life is going to help you communicate to each of those styles. So for example, if I'm an assertive talking to a steadiness, I have to come over and at least say, hi, how you doing, how's your day? Because that's important to them. If they go right into the task, the steadiness is going to think that this person does not value me as a human being and will shut down. The goal of leadership is not to shut people down, but to bring people into the fold. So by understanding and appreciating each of these styles, it's going to help people, especially you as a leader. Different does not mean wrong. Different just means different. In many of my assignments when I'm coaching, usually what ends up happening is I'm dealing with people who are not appreciating the other styles. They're getting stuck on their style and looking at the world from that particular lens. The whole concept here is to get them out of their lens and really see how other people process things. Because the different styles just means that they are different in how they process things. It doesn't make my style better or my approach better or theirs better. It just makes it different. And we as leaders want to make an I win, you win. The whole concept here is to be really more effective in understanding the various styles and how they interplay with each other. So in terms of the styles, these are the things that leaders really need to understand and really grasp to be effective. So, as your coach today, I'm going to leave you with some homework. From what we talked about today, where do you fall on this grid? Where do you think you fall in terms of your particular style? By understanding that, you'll now understand what you need to do to be able to connect with those other people. You want to make sure that you allow bridges in your communication, don't put up walls. It's real important. So that's going to be your homework before our next show. Now, if there's anything we can do at Get Your Edge to help you in your leadership skills, you can reach us at www.getyouredge.com, or if you like to learn your communication style, we will give you a free communication assessment that you can take so you can understand what your style is. Because after all, by knowing that, it's going to make you a better leader. So thanks again for tuning in to our show, and we'll see you next time.